It is a great morning, isn't it? Nice, beautiful day outside. I don't think there's a chance you're going to beat the Methodists to the white meat at all, not because I'm going to be long, but because they might be short. Exodus chapter 32. I know the bulletin says 1 through 8. I audibled after it was printed. I can do that because I have the microphone. So we're going to look at 1 through 6. Exodus chapter 32, verses 1 through 6. When the people saw that Moses delayed to coming down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves to Aaron and said, "Up, make us a god who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." So Aaron said to them, "Take off the rings of gold that are in your ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." So all the people took off the rings of gold that were in the ears and brought them to Aaron. And he received the gold from their hand and fashioned it with graving tools and made a golden calf. And they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." And when Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made a proclamation saying, "Tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord." And they rose up early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought a peace offering. And the people sat down to eat and drink, and they rose up to play. Let's catch up with where we are. 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how all the decrees of God have been read to the children of Israel. And as they're being read, the people said, we'll do this. And as the continuation goes on, they say, we'll do this and we will obey them. Last week, we talked about the Sabbath and how the Sabbath is a holy day. And in both of those, I used this alliteration of, do you honor God with your time, your talent, and your tithe? And we're going to pick up with that again today, because right after the text explains to these people that the Lord's Day is a holy day for them and for the Lord, they commit apostasy. After affirming the giving of the 10 Commandments and saying, we will obey them, they commit blasphemy. I say, man, those people are bad. We're going to see we're kind of like that. Notice how it begins. Moses has been gone for a while. When the people saw that Moses delayed in coming down, Moses is up receiving more of the law from God. He's getting more and more information. Matter of fact, some of the information that is going to come to them about the Sabbath and a few other things are going to come down here in a minute. And next week we're going to see the reaction of a holy God and the mercy that comes from a holy God. Because if you remember 2 weeks ago, they were told, do not provoke my angel, which is him, to wrath, because he will not suffer it and he will destroy you. The proclamation of obey or destruction has already been given. And when the people see that Moses has delayed, they do not know where Moses has gone. Clearly, God can't keep Moses alive. Maybe he's had a heart attack on the side of the road. Maybe he slipped and fell. Who knows? He's gone. You're going to see where they not only reject the leadership of Moses, but they reject the leadership of the one true God. And they replace it with another individual, and they replace it with another God. The people gathered themselves and come to Aaron and said to him, "Make us a god who shall go before us. We want a physical, tangible thing that walks in front of us, that we can be like all the other nations." The problem is, all the other nations don't have a God. They have a thing that goes before them. They have a visible, tangible thing that goes before them. But there's no power in the thing. These are the same people that complained when Moses got involved with Pharaoh and tells Pharaoh to let my people go. He doesn't ask Pharaoh, he tells Pharaoh. And watch, the 10 plagues come and utterly destroy a kingdom, and they mewed the whole time. These are the same people that when they were trapped against the Red Sea and Pharaoh's army went, not enough graves in Egypt. What a fickle group of folks. And then the Lord parts the Red Sea, and you figure that plus the 10 plagues, that should be enough, right? Should be enough. These people should go, hey, this God guy, he's awesome. And I don't even have to really see him to know anything. I just follow along. And as soon as they get through the Red Sea, they come to a place with bitter water. Moses throws a stick in there, and somehow the water becomes sweet. And they go, oh, this God, he's kind of cool. And then just seconds, a couple of days later, there's not enough bread. There's not enough this. There's not enough this. Moses has been gone for a while. Give us a false god. A lot of times we build gods for ourselves because we, deep down in our understanding of ourselves, if we can't see it, it just doesn't exist. I hear a small child in here. You ever played peekaboo with a baby? It's amazing. Every time you take your hand away from their eyes, how shocked they are that you just didn't disappear. We do this with God. Because we cannot see him, and in some regards, because of the sinfulness of our heart, we can no longer feel the presence of him or know the presence of him. We act as though he's gone. And then when we act as though he's gone, we act as though he cannot see what we are doing. Because if we acted as though he could see what we are doing, we wouldn't sin. Think about it. I never did anything in front of my parents. Because retribution came quick. I waited for them to be gone, or at least out of the room. Why? Well, when they're gone, they won't know. And we have the same thing with God. Well, he's not here any longer. He's come and gone, so give us something we can see, we can look at, and we can follow behind. Well, we don't make idols, right? No, we don't make idols. Right? We don't make idols. That's what they say. As for this Moses guy, kind of brought us up. We really didn't trust his leadership. This is really the intent of what they're saying. We really didn't trust his leadership. We just followed him because that God we were about ready to reject, he put him in charge. But dude, seriously, guy's got problems. He's a control freak. He's not the smartest guy. He threw a stick in the water and somehow it came. This guy's not bright. Brought us out of the land of Egypt. Well, we don't know what's become of him. Translation, he's gone, God's gone, and we're left by ourselves. Make us a God, Aaron. Make us a God. Now, notice Aaron's response. So Aaron said to them, take off. How many of you have take off in your Bible? This isn't a trick question. Raise your hand. Do you have take off in your Bible? How many of you have the words tear off? New American Standard actually translates this passage correctly because there are two words in Hebrew. One is to take, one is to tear. This is the word to tear. The King James is the second closest with break off. But you don't break something out of your skin, you tear it. The New American Standard has the absolute best translation because what Aaron tells them to do is an interesting thing. In the hopes many commentators believe, and what it appears that what Aaron is trying to do is passively keep a revolt from getting out of control, because you'll see this when he decides he's going to make an offering unto the Lord and it turns into something else. He looks at the people and he says, well, if you want a golden calf, sure, that's not a problem, but you have to tear the earrings from your wife's ears, your daughter's ears, and your son's ears. And the implication is from your ear. Now, ladies, I need a volunteer. Or a gentleman with an earring in his ear. I just need one. Come up here, stand right here, and I'm going to reach up and I'm going to grab a hold, This is purely for biblical and scientific research. And I'm going to grab that earring and I'm going to go, yoink. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Please go back and have a seat. No, I'm just kidding. Go on. And I'm going to reach up and I'm going to grab that earring and I'm going to rip it from your skull. You figure that should have stopped it. What good man would look at his wife and go, sorry, baby. He said rip them from your ears. Whoop! Certainly not on Mother's Day, right? Sorry, kiddos, but Aaron said rip them out. And the force of the language is to rip from the head the earrings. Not go, hold on a second, there you go. No. It's a violent act. Have you ever noticed that for your God, you will do extraordinary things for? Maybe not the one true God, but for the God that you worship, you will go to great lengths to pursue that God? Have you also noticed that for your God, you tend to have unlimited funds? Maybe not the one true God, but your true God, the one you worship, you have unlimited funds to pursue that God. You are willing to incur physical pain for that God. But because Moses delayed for 40 days, God no longer exists, therefore we're going to build a cow. Have you noticed in your life that the God you claim to worship isn't the God you are willing to incur pain for, debt for, or pleasure for? Your time, your talent, your tithe, where does it go? Theirs went to a cow. A lot of times we go, oh, well, Brother Ashley, I don't have a false gods. I'm here. You would not believe how many times I hear people say, are you going to do any topics? No, I'm going to tell you right now, no. I don't do topical preaching. It's the lowest form of preaching that exists. It is actually allegorical preaching. I do expository preaching. Why? The Bible does not command me as a preacher to teach you topics that make you feel good, give you fuzzy feelings, topical passages that you would like to hear again. The Bible commands the minister to preach the entire counsel of the Word of God. Period. The full counsel. All of it. But it's not popular. Too bad. I answer to God. I preach the full counsel of the Word of God. Topical ministers typically go from passages that they like throughout their careers. I have 66 books. I got plenty of material. Say, well, yeah, but your sermons are long series. You know, one of the great things about Facebook is I can see what you guys post. You can see what I post. That's great. You know, when people complain about a long sermon, I see that they have no problem sitting and watching the Dallas Cowboy football game for hours on end. Which one's their God? Which one's their God? The one they're willing to sit and watch hours upon end that have absolutely no relevance to the spiritual condition of their lives at all and absolutely no bearing on their eternal resting place, or a long sermon that is long. Oh, it's a long sermon series, Brother Ashley. You know, I've watched people post on Facebook how they love basketball season, which I believe starts in the fall and is still going on. And yet you post about how great and how often you follow it. Which one's your God? Oh, well, that's not the same. Yeah, actually it is. Actually it is. It's a gut check moment for the Christian believer today. Open your checkbook, take out your bills and your have-tos, and then add up your want-tos and ask yourself, where does your money go? And that's your God. Is entertainment it? Then that's your God. Is food it? Then that's your God. If you're willing to spend money on all these, notice these people were willing to tear their earrings out of their own ears to make a God that would never ask that from them. When nobody's around and you have a computer, who's your God? See, we think that a false idol is something we build, it's in the home, we bow down and we worship it. No, sometimes it's the one-eyed monster that stares back at you that glows. It glows. It glows. And it just gives. And we zone out to it. Some of us believe that our God is our money because, well, I worked really hard and I saved up a lot of money. Therefore, when I have a rainy day, and it's not that we have a rainy day flood, we have the 100-year deluge rainy day fund. Who's our God on that one? The strength of my arm? The amount in my bank account? How much am I willing to incur to support that God? How much physical pain am I willing to endure to support that God? You say, well, I don't really endure any great physical pain. Okay, you endure some spiritual pain. Because if these other things are your gods, what are you nourishing yourself with? Oh, well, I read some theology books. Great. Are you reading books by folks like Joyce Meyer, T.D. Jakes, John Hagee, Jonathan Cohen? That's spiritual junk food. It'll fill you up, rot your teeth, and make you fat. I love me jelly beans. I have a big old jar of them. Last night, I ate me some jelly beans. This morning, I woke up wishing I hadn't eaten the jelly beans. I love me some cheeseburgers. I can crush a triple meat, triple cheese, triple bacon, jalapenos, and no sauce. All day long. Pretty soon, though, it's not very healthy, and then they'll put me on medicine to lower my cholesterol, where if I just ate healthy to begin with, I wouldn't have to mess with that crap now, wouldn't I? Why? Because I prefer junk food over real food. When was the last time any of you read a book by C.S. Lewis, Norm Geisler, John Piper, R.C. Sproul, John or Charles Wesley, George Whitefield, Charles Haddon Spurgeon, Martin Luther, Billy Sunday, Fanny Crosby? But we like this. Yes, that's the God of consumerism. See, what happens is even when we come here and we complain about the length of things or things like that, it is consumer-based deity. We come to get. If you were here last week, you understand what I'm saying. You act like a catfish at the end of a drain pipe. You're just there for the party. And there's no outflow to you. Who is your God? And what you do is you come in and go, make the God do what we want. We want all hymns. We want topical sermons. Consume, consume, consume. We want all praises. And we want all this. Consume, consume. Your God is consumerism. It's a fact of the matter. Worship is an act of the heart, not a style of music. Worship is an act of the heart, not a style of preaching. If you cannot worship to a style of music, then the problem is not the music. The problem is your heart. And you have assumed another deity other than the one true God. And you have decided that you will come here and consume. Nowhere does the text ever say, sit on a pew and consume. I will challenge you right now. Find me a verse that says, and all of God's people came, sat, and were gorged and did nothing. We are not consumers. We are doers. We are to put our hands to the plow. Notice what they do. They are willing to embrace a God to their own hurt. People who embrace a God to their own hurt do not really care whether or not what they read is making them fat, dumb, and blind. They just want it. They don't care if whether or not they sit alone with a computer and look at things they should never look at, that is doing any damage to them, but yet it is. Well, I feel good when I do it. No, it's poisoning you. They don't realize that when they withhold their tithe or don't tithe at all, that it is damaging themselves. They feel good because they cause them to go and spend their money on their real God, which is anything other than the one true God. Make us a God, Aaron. And make it a God that will do what we want it to do, because we want it to go before us. And Aaron's response is, okay, just rip those earrings out of your wife's, kids, and yourselves' ears and give me the gold. And without hesitation in the text, they rip them out. If they had nose rings. One time I was a machinist, and when you're working on very high tolerance parts, you don't let go of your machine. And I had a molten piece of metal come out, and it went, and you could see it coming, and it went, psst. You say real men don't cry? I wasn't a real man at that moment. Those may not have been tears of joy, but they certainly were not tears of sadness. To their own hurt. See, we're willing to embrace false gods to our own spiritual detriment, to our own physical detriment, to our marriage's detriment, to our life's detriment, to our health's detriment. Make us a God, Moses, or Aaron. Make us a God. Again, they are honoring their God with their time, with their talent, and with their tithe. The same as you, same as me. It's easy to do. It's very easy to do. It's very easy to get caught up in the things of things. But they don't stop there. They don't stop there. And he received the gold from their hand, and he fashioned it with graving tools, and he made a golden calf. Now, the calf is probably not made of solid gold. It's probably a wood structure that he overlays all the gold upon. That's typically how they made gold statues. Because if the calf, which is they believe is the image of a full-size bull, kind of hard to lift that dude out of the ground if it's solid gold. I don't know if any of you have had the pleasure of holding a gold bar. It's a little heavy. So more than likely the process of fashioning it is to make the gold and then fashion it over it to where it's got this nice shiny, because we like a shiny God, right? I certainly like shiny guns, so therefore, there you go. And they said, these are your God, or gods, plural, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. In the Old Testament, at every time Israel sins, one of the first things God says to them is, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the hand of Egypt and delivered you. And they take this golden calf and they then say, this thing is the God that delivered us. They have violated the first three commands of the law they all went north-south on and said they would do and obeyed. Violated the first one, that they have another God before them. Violated the second one, that they made an image and then they worshipped the image. And they violated the third one because they used the Lord's name in vain by taking glory and honor due God alone for the delivery of Israel out of the hands of Egyptians and gave it to a false thing. Do the same thing with your God. My money can save me. I have earned enough to be good enough, therefore I don't have to worry about my eternal resting place. My money can deliver me. The strength of my arm can deliver me. I don't have to seek comfort and nourishment in my actual God. I can just flip on the computer and find it there. Or I can flip on the TV and find it there. Or I can go and find it elsewhere. Or I can go and rake up more debt on my credit cards to feel that aspect of the lack within me instead of finding it within the one true God. I can ingest biblical garbage and expect to have any type of positive outcome. I can consume. I can consume and consume and consume, and I'm a holy person. This is the God that let us out. This is the God that makes me feel good. This is the God that makes me do what I want to do. But it's not the one true God. Have you ever noticed we craft gods in the image of ourselves? We look for the things that we want ourselves to really be. Go look at the Greek gods. They're just like us, but with spooky powers. Go look at the Roman gods, same thing. They're just like us, but with spooky powers. You go look at some of the ancient Near Eastern ones, and, well, we won't go down that road because we got kids in here. Aaron seems to be trying to stir the tide, but see what Aaron is doing, instead of saying, no, I will not make for you a false god, he goes, well, just rip them earrings right out of your ear. And amazingly, was shocked when they went, okay. Now, if you got a family of 12, that's a lot of Band-Aids and a lot of crying. Imagine the shock when he watched people rip them out of your hand. So then, Aaron comes, and instead of saying, this is wrong, we shouldn't do it, he takes a more passive approach and says, and when Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made a proclamation, tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord, all caps. Means he's talking about not the calf, but talking about the one true God. I don't know what he actually is thinking he's going to accomplish with this. He's got the gold calf. He's got an altar in front of it. He's going to sacrifice to the Lord, but this calf is overseeing it. That's called appeasement. At both turns, what he tried to do was appease the congregation by giving them just enough of what they wanted, but then trying to enforce a standard. The fact of the matter is the standard, whether or not the people agree to the standard or not. My job is not to tell you what you want to hear, but tell you what the text tells you you must need to hear. That goes along with the full counsel of the Word of God. The Bible also tells us that in the last days, individuals will not listen to sound doctrine, but they will listen to things that tickle the ear. Why? It's how we are. Go read this text. These people screw it up time after time after time after time. And next week we're going to see where God is right and just in saying, I am going to kill them all. I am going to wipe them from the earth. And you will see his grace and mercy in the fact that he does not. We're going to create another abomination by mixing the things with God with the things that are not God, hoping that the people will get the things of God with the things that are not God, and hopefully I can turn the tide and they'll come back to God. Let's see how this worked out for them. And they rose up early the next day and offered burnt offerings. Sounds good. Brought peace offerings. Sounds great. People sat down to eat and drink, and they rose up to play. Does anybody have rose up to revel? Now, that's a polite way of translating. This section is politely translated. They gorged themselves and got themselves drunk and then proceeded to have an orgy. That's the force of the text. So when they come forward to the altar of the Lord to offer sacrifices unto the Lord to make themselves holy, they go and they sacrifice to this thing not God, and then they decide to indulge in the things of not God, eat until they're full, drink until they're drunk, and then have an orgy. That's what it means to get up and play. Now they violated the seventh commandment. See, when we play with things that are not God, that we make gods, we end up violating all the commands that God has given us. Do you honor the Lord with your time, your talent, your tithe? Or do you honor your God with your time, your talent, and your tithe? You cannot serve two masters. You will have one. And that master will receive all of your time and all of your talent and all of your tithe. Like I said, I find it amazing that people can find money for their God, little g, and then turn around and have no money for God, big G. They can spend an enormous amount of time with their God, little g. It was very convicting. I had to add up the number of times I sat and watched the glowing thing above the mantle, because it glows, versus the amount of time I actually spend with God during the week. Care to guess which one won? The glowing thing above the mantle, because it glows. Sometimes I was asleep, so I didn't count those because I really wasn't watching the thing. So I figured no sense in counting those hours. There were plenty of other hours to do. I don't need to do the ones where I was asleep. It was purely a sleep aid. That's all it was. Notice how I justified my time with my little g God. Imagine how much time we spend in the pursuit of free time, in the pursuit of hobbies. Well, look, folks, free time is great. TV is great. Hobbies are great. All these things in moderation are fine things. But when they become out of balance, they have become your God. Buying things is fine. But when we open our checkbook and we go through and we look and we see that there is more given to fun than there is to God, we've got an issue. Well, tithe 10%, great. Bible in the New Testament requires us to be givers, not tithers. Tithing is a nice concept, but we are called to be givers. Remember, I brought up the fact that we are more than willing to sing all to Jesus I surrender, unless, of course, there's a dollar sign in front of it. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa! And I'm not against having good times. And I'm not against about having nice trips and having nice things. And God's not against those either. But when they're out of balance, they become God. And then what we do is we try to hide that by coming to church, and then we bow down and we worship to the Lord, but then we apostate it even further. Because there's no true worship of God, big G, but an attempt to hide the apostasy of God with a little g. And there is no hiding this. The reason why God will respond to Moses here in the next week's sermon is because there is no hiding this. This is an offense to a holy God. This would be like taking that and just shoving it right there in his nose. That's the imagery that the text will draw for you. What they did with all that apostasy would be if you could put your hand on the back of God's head and take that apostasy and just rub his nose right into it and say, get you some of that, God. How many of you would be willing to do that to the God Almighty? Build us a God, Aaron. Build us a God. And we will incur our God. We will sacrifice for our God. We will come and do false worship before our God. Because its image is far more powerful than the one true God who actually leads us out of Israel. The power of the gods in our lives are more powerful than his ability to deliver our soul from hell. Why? Because our actions show that. We may say something different, but your actions betray your words. My actions betray my words. You're here today. And you've have your own little God. Let me ask you, can you honestly tell me you can serve the God of the universe with your time, your talent, and your tithe at the exact same time you are honoring your God with the exact same time, talent, and tithe? It's a lie. You will not be able to co-share, enjoy both. You will love one and you will hate the other. As the praise band comes to sing, I want you to take this moment and ask yourself, have you built yourself a God? What's the name of your God? Is it the God of consumerism? Is it the God of preference? Is it the God of money? Is it the God of free time? Is it the God of whatever I can fill in my life? Why don't you take a moment then and have a heart-to-heart with the one true God and recommit your life to the worship of the one true God. You're here today and you say, I've been attending for a while and I'd really like to join into the fellowship of Skyline Baptist Church because I want to be a part of this wonderful family. I'll have my microphone turned off. If you have other reasons to come forward, I'd love to sit and talk to you about the wonderful grace of a loving God who, while we all deserve obliteration for our crimes, shows intense mercy when in all rights he could show us just complete justice. As the praise band comes to lead us, if you'll stand.